What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. Of course, this is TWA Motorsports, and today we're doing something that you guys have wanted to see me do for a while on the NBS crew cab, and that is we are going to add fog lights. So I've got all the parts that I need to add the fog lights, and of course, like always, guys, I will list every single thing I'm using in the description down below. But we've got, so let's talk about some of the parts that we got. Obviously, we need a new valance. That's what this is. That piece here you could cut away, but I've seen that done and it just looks tacky. So I just wanted to get a new one. Mine actually has a crack on both sides anyway, so it was time to replace it. And guys, look, I know this thing is absolutely filthy. I've been trying to, I mean, I drive this thing every day and it's been raining on and off. And so I don't even get 2 good days out of a wash. But anyway, so we've got the valance. You could see the fog lights back here behind, ordered those brand new. And then other than that, we have a couple things. Obviously we got some LEDs for the fog lights. We have the switch. We have a pin, so these pins to make our wiring. We've got some pigtails for the lights themselves. And then we've got a relay. And then one other thing I'm going to add in this video is the all on mod that I did on the Tahoe a while back. So basically what that gets you is it gives you the ability to have brights, dims, and fogs all on at the same time. So kind of a cool little deal. One of the things though I want to talk about before I start this is in the last video on this thing, you guys saw me put in the air compressor. So that thing's been doing great, but you also, I showed you that I ran 2 extra wires and I told you I would talk about that in the next video on this truck. And so the reason I did that, guys, is because when I originally bought this truck, I wanted to do a compass mirror. And so what I did is I wanted to run those extra 2 lines for the temp sensor. What is really, really odd though, and I've noticed this about the seats too, is the fact that all I did was plug that thing in and it already has a temp sensor, which is right back here behind the grill. It's actually mounted on this side of the core support. And so I plugged that in and it worked. So I didn't even need to run those wires. So yeah, I actually went ahead and pulled those out. And so I just wanted to tell you guys what was going on as far as that's concerned. For some reason, this one was wired. Normally you would have to run 2 wires to that temp sensor, but I didn't. So either way, and I told you, like on the seat too, it looks like it's wired for a power seat and it doesn't have one. So I don't know what the deal is, but either way, let's tear into this thing. I think where we'll start is we'll start on the inside because all we have to do really is plug the switch in. The factory pre-wired this for fog lights. And as a matter of fact, this actually has the relay in it, I noticed, and it has a fuse. So we may get lucky and we pop this valance off and we have pigtails down there. I don't think that's going to be the case, but maybe we'll get lucky and that will be. But we'll start in the inside. We need to pull a couple things apart to get the new switch in. So obviously we need to replace the switch right here, which means that we need to take our bezel off. And so we'll turn that car on and then we'll move it down into first gear. Get this thing out of the way. And then we need to go grab a pry tool. That's gonna make me crazy, listen to that. We need to go grab a pry tool and get this out. Now, sometimes you can use a flat blade screwdriver, but I'll show you on the new switch kind of how that thing goes in there. If you notice on the switch, you have a clip on the top and a clip on the bottom. So what we need to do is we need to release those clips. And sometimes you can use a pry bar, or not a pry bar. I seem to like using a flat blade screwdriver a little better, just because in my opinion, it just fits in there a little nicer. But we also, it doesn't really matter if we break this switch. And I think what I'm gonna have to do is, I think I'm gonna have to grab my light. I don't have enough light to see what's going on in here. It may be even easier if we pulled this out, but I'm gonna try to keep from having to do that. I wish I could get this. I guess I could take this out to give me a little more access. this gives me the ability to see this bottom one. So we lift up on this little tab. Oh. We need to get the bottom one. There we go. So yeah, I'll take that out of the way, I guess. Once we get that, then we'll go ahead and, this is not a push style clip. Need to pry this back, get this thing unplugged. Now this is the most simple part of this whole operation. All we have to do is plug this guy in. Now let's see if it lights up. And it does. So that's good. Now we just need to shove this thing back in here. I guess it'd help if it went the right way. Dome light on the top, fog light on the bottom. And then we can put our little cubby hole back in. And we could put our dash back together. That's literally, it's about as simple as it gets on the inside. I always hit that. And I've got one of these that's kind of bent, so I kind of have to guide it in place over here. Should be all set. Now let's go do the hard part. I'm gonna pop the hood and let's get to the next part. So as opposed to fighting, trying to get under this truck since it's so low, I did lift it up a little bit with my jacks. And let's get under here and take a look at what we need to take apart. So you can see it's got, well, that's weird. It's actually got screws holding it right there. And then push clips, you can see that push clip. We need to pull all those push clips out and get this thing off the bottom. Now, one other thing you might notice is this has the little lip on the bottom, which I'd like to keep if possible. So we do need to take, looks like a 10 millimeter, and the rest just clips in like these little push out clips. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and grab, I was looking to see if we had any fog light harnesses. We may. I don't know, but either way, I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing off, pull these clips all out, and then we'll move on to looking for wire if we have it. If not, we will be running new. So I've got this and the lower lip off. The lower lip, like I said, has that 10 millimeter here in the corners, but then it just clips the rest of the way in. So it clips in the bottom, those little clips right there, hold it. But there was one other 10 millimeter in the center, which I've never seen. I don't think I've ever had one of these off on this year truck. Obviously, I've done several on the generation before that, but it's very similar. So there's a piece in the bumper that stays there, right? There's a plastic holder. And so this little clip, you have to pull the center out, just like a lot of GM products, you have to pull the center out. But once you get the center out, you need to pinch this in order for it to come out. Otherwise, it won't come out of place. And so I've got that all out, and you can see I've got clips scattered everywhere. If you guys don't have one of these tools to pull clips out, it's pretty handy. A flathead screwdriver will work as well. But I want to go ahead and take the grill top out here just so I have more room. And then I think I want to take the grill out as well. Now to get these out, you can use the flat blade or flathead screwdriver to pop them out, or you can use this tool like I was telling you about. Makes life a little bit easier. Just comes out a lot easier that way. So we'll get this out of the way, and then we'll get the grill out. Now your grill should just unsnap. And I like to put my hands close to it so we don't risk breaking any clips. Now remember, I had this grill out not long ago because I wanted to put some paint back behind to make that look a little nicer. You know, that silver shining through. It's kind of tacky. And I did it to put the headlights in, but I painted this bar right here. But you can see what I was talking about earlier in the video. This is your temp sensor. And that is what I was planning on running wire to, but it was already there. So I am gonna look around in here just to make sure that there's no light harness, because there may be. Well, bad news, it doesn't have a harness, which is fine. I had planned on that anyway. So what we need to do, guys, is we've got 2 plugs, right? One for right, one for left, and we need to run some wire. And so I'm gonna pick the same on both sides. So as you're looking at the plug like that, I'm gonna take this side and make it the ground. And so where we need to go is, obviously we need to come from like this area here over, and from there back, but there's a ground back here behind the bumper, which I'll show you here in a minute. That is where I want to ground to. So basically I'm going to put some ground wire on, enough lead to get us over to this area. And then I don't want a ton of excess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of poke this wire through here. And the first one we make isn't going to really matter because we can cut it off wherever. But I don't want a ton of excess, you know. I like it looking nice and neat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder these connections on this side. So the ground, I'm going to make this connection, and this is, I want to say 14 gauge wire, more than ample for what we're doing, especially since we're going to be running an LED light. But we need to solder this connection, and then we'll roll this out and kind of see how far that we need to go over. And look, if I have to waste some wire, I'll waste some wire in order to make this work. But like I said, I don't want a ton of excess. So I'll probably do the black on there, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put the red on the other side as well. That way we can run them both at the same time, kind of get our lengths figured out, and then we'll chop them off. So let me go ahead and solder these connections, and then we'll look at that ground underneath and kind of where we want to go next. Let's take a look at what we got. So I did just tape these together so they didn't spread apart as much, but I've got our ends soldered on. I heat shrunk them, and so we got a red going to, as you're looking at the plug, it would be the left side. I just want to make sure that I do the same on both plugs. It doesn't really matter, to be honest with you, because you could change the polarity of the bulb, but I just want to try to keep it as good as possible. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of loom on this. That way these wires kind of stay together, and then we'll get under the truck. I think, honestly, guys, I may end up running it on the front side. I don't know. We'll look and see on the back side if there's a better spot. But if I can't find a spot that I really like back there in the back, I may run it like right behind the grill here, behind this little flap. I don't know. We'll just have to see. I guess that would look kind of tacky to run it there. But I could run it underneath. I could run it underneath that. That would look okay. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know. I want to have something to zip tie to. So anyway, I'm going to go grab some loom. We'll loom this up just, you know, to a certain area. I'm not going to trim the loom off yet. And then we'll get under there and take a look at it. So I want to show you kind of where I've ran this. I decided to go under, so I'm over the frame horn. This is the passenger side. I went over the frame. I went under the coolant lines. And then I went all the way over the frame here, and this is where I've gotten to. So here's where we're gonna need to tie on our second one. And so you can see I've left it out of the loom there. And we're also going to have to put leads on it, right? We're gonna have to have one for the ground, which that ground I was talking about, can you see it right there on the end of the frame? That's where we're gonna ground to. So our black's gonna go there. And then we need to solder a connection. So basically we're teeing off here. So we're gonna need this red wire to go up to the fuse block. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go ahead and cut it right here, and I'm going to solder a piece to go, basically the other light to go in here, and then the red wire to go up, and then a ground coming off both of these to ground right there where you saw that. But I actually think this is where the factory may run it, and I wish I had some of the little clips, because there's holes right there. You see that hole? That I could clip it to. So I may have to go to the salvage yard and find some of those. When I say clips, like the factory GM style plastic clips that push in and have a little eyelet to hold things. But that's kind of how we've ran things. I'm gonna go ahead, solder the other plug here on this, and we'll get it all tied up and then ready to go to the fuse block. Let's catch up on what we got. So I went ahead and soldered this other plug on, wrapped it in loom, and then I went ahead and put a ground on it. So remember, we teed off one ground coming from this plug, one ground coming from the other one, and I put it in place with that ground right there. And then I soldered, we obviously teed off the power, so the red and the red, so the red from this plug, the red from the other plug, and then the extra of the red is going to go up into the fuse block. So I've got it in the loom right here, and so we're gonna have to find a way to sneak it kind of up in this area here. I'm just gonna try to zip tie to some stuff that's already there. You can see I've zip tied the line here, and then I zip tied a couple spots. Oh crap, the camera. Zip tied there until I get one of those clips like I'm thinking about. So at this point, really guys, I need to just thread this wire up top, and then we can do the, like where we have to wire it into the fuse block. Now that we've got the wire up here, I just ran behind or under the computer and then straight up the fender well here, and I zip tied to this really big thick line that you can see coming into this box. So I probably shouldn't have zip tied it yet, but I may end up having to cut it loose. But either way, I went ahead and unhooked the negative side of the battery with an 8mm here, and we need to get this guy out of the way. So I'm gonna move this for now, and I need to get a 13 to take this guy out, and we need to take this whole package tray off. So there's two little clips along the sides that should allow us to get that loose. I may have to unhook my stereo wire since obviously I'm zip tied to that line, but we need to get this thing basically almost upside down. You can see we've got that plastic upper box out now, and like I said, you had to remove those to get that out, but we need to unclip this thing. There's a couple clips you can see here, so you can see the clip there, and then there's a clip on the side here, right there up front, and another clip in the corner, because we need to fold this thing over. I'm gonna go ahead and trim off my wire loom to just about even with this big chunk of wires that we have right here, and we're gonna tuck things up nice and neat within that. And then we'll have our red wire, remember that we ran all the way up here, and we'll talk about where we need to stab it in here and what the next steps are, because once we flip this over, we are gonna have to take something out and then pull the lock apart, I believe, in order to get that in there. One thing I did have to do in order to get this to peel up like I wanted was I had to disconnect the two power leads that go into the front side up here. But we need to take this guy loose. The green plug is where we're gonna be tacking in. So let's get this thing loosened up. It's just plastic. Make sure your battery's unhooked, guys. Almost there. These are those, man, you can't really tell if they're loose because they get to a point where you swear they're loose, but now, well, it is still not loose. But anyway, once we get this out, we should be dealing with the fourth hole, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm gonna have to look at it. I can't believe that thing's that stubborn. There we go. All right, so once we get this out, we are gonna have to pull this little lock out. So you're gonna need like a flat blade screwdriver to pop this lock out. And then that is why we needed, I went ahead and ran my red wire. This is it here. But that's the reason we needed those connections that I showed you at the very first of the video, because we need something to stab in here to grab the fuse up top. So I'm gonna go ahead, I think I'm just gonna cut this now because we're pretty sure on the length, shouldn't have any issue there. And I'm also gonna come in on that same side, so I'm gonna pull it back out for a second and run it through this same kind of area here. All this stuff ties in, and I may even cut this. There's a zip tie right here. Maybe I can just, be awesome if I could get that through there, but I don't know that I'll be able to. No. So I tell you what, I'm just gonna zip tie it. I'm gonna zip tie this real quick, and then I'll cut this other zip tie off. That way everything stays in place and we get this one in at the same time. So I got that zip tied on there, but either way, we need to pull this guy out. So this is how it goes in. We pulled it straight out, and as we're looking at it here, we need to pull this guy, this little keeper out, if I can get, there we go. And it only goes in one way, you can see, so you don't have to worry about when you're putting it back in. But at this point, I need to get this guy on here. And so I'm gonna trim back a little bit more. Probably should have waited and cut it, but it's okay. We'll trim it back to about here. And then we need to strip this wire off and get this guy installed. That's that clip that I was talking about in the first of the video. We'll go ahead, strip this down, get this installed, and we need to go in the 4th hole. So as it pulls out, you see the green wire here, then you have a blank, then you generally have a red or maroonish color. This 4th hole is where we need to go in with power. So I'm gonna go get this thing connected, bend these little tabs over, and then we'll try to get it up in place. Now that we got this thing on, we need to thread it into place, hopefully. And you could kind of cheat and look at the top wires to see. It's sometimes a pain to get in, guys, so. We'll keep working here. If it only goes in one direction, and so I'm looking at the ones on the other side, this is definitely the direction it goes in, just sometimes it wants to fight you. There we go. So once we get it in there, we need to slide our little clip back in, and it shouldn't come out now. It won't come out. All right, perfect. Now, all we need to do is get this thing tightened back up here. There we go. And we'll set it back down, and I'm gonna actually hook some wires up before we get everything tightened. We'll stick a light on one of those sockets in there, and we're gonna give it a shot because I don't wanna put all this back together, obviously, if we're gonna have an issue with something fitting. Now I got that set back in there, but none of the rest of it. But we need to put our relay in. So our relay that we got, GM relay, hopefully it'll go down in there. And it did. Okay, so I'm gonna hook the negative side of the battery up here. You can see it sparking. And then we will turn the key on. I got a light just kind of sitting on my bench right here. Let's turn this thing on and see if it works. So we turned it on. Perfect. It's working. So that's good. Now we can go ahead and tie the rest of that up. I'm gonna clean some of those panels off, but you can see our fog light switch is lit up down there. See our little light? But let's clean some stuff. I'm gonna clean some stuff off, and then we'll move on to installing the actual new valance. And yeah, we're getting close, guys. I decided there's one other thing that I completely forgot to tell you before we get under there and put the valance on. Under this, there is a 30 amp fuse for the fog lights. So mine already had that in place. Yours should, but if not, you're gonna need a 30 amp fuse. But I did go ahead and put the grill back in and this upper shroud. I didn't necessarily need to take the grill out. The main reason I did that was looking for any wiring and if I decided to run it on the front side of the grill. So obviously we didn't have to do that. I do think it gives you a little more access to like reach your hand through if you need to, but not required in order to get this done. So let's get under this thing. I'm not sure whether we should put I think I'm gonna put the little lip thing on last because I wanna clean it up really good. But this guy here, I don't know whether we should mount the fog lights or if we should mount this guy first. So I may kind of loosely thread the fog lights into place first. And if I do, I'll show you. And then we may put the valance up. I don't really know. We may just try to figure it out as we go, because I don't know necessarily that one has to go on first because they don't actually fit in the valance. They kind of just fit in the opening. They actually bolt to the bottom of the bumper. I think I've decided I'm gonna just test fit the lights first. So in order to do that, obviously you didn't have lights before, so you're gonna need one of these little inserts, and I'll try to list this in the description down below. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna put this insert in, and it gives you the ability to mount something in the bumper. Now, if you wanted to, you could go to a salvage yard and try to find maybe a GM one, but I just got some stuff that I had laying around that's gonna work. So I need to go ahead and put this one in, but we're gonna go ahead and put the light in, and then maybe we'll put the valance up in place and see kind of what we need to do as far as adjusting. And obviously before we put the light in, I did go ahead and put our new LED bulb in. Like I said, same thing from C-Light. I wanted them to match the LEDs that I put in the headlight. So I did go ahead and put that in. Now guys, there is a left and a right, and it should say on the box, but it's also, when you put them up there, it's kind of obvious which one goes where. So we're gonna put this thing up there using the bolts that I have. Like I said, I think it'll be easier. I don't know that you can even reach this with the valance off. So I think this is the way we need to do it. Well, a little bit of a change in plans. So you notice my inserts are out now. This thing does not mount like a standard light does. So it actually goes up and mounts on the top side. And so because of that, I'm not gonna use those brackets because my brackets that I've got are not big enough. I'm just going to use those bolts that I had and then put a nut on top. Obviously you don't have any threaded end here, so we're gonna have to put something up top. I'll probably put a washer and just a nut that fits those bolts that I have there. But yeah, it's kind of odd because I went to put this up here and it doesn't set flush, and that is because it sets on top. So the GM piece has a clip, you can see it's kind of recessed there, that goes around that whole thing. So I'm gonna use just a washer, like I said, and a nut on the end, but a guy could go get the factory GM pieces if you wanted and mount it, but I don't, look, you can get local parts at the hardware store that would probably work fine. Well, you can see I've got the fog lights on there. I just kind of wanted to see what happened here when I put this valance on. Now, I don't have any of the clips in it, obviously, but just wanted to make sure that we're going to fit the way it's supposed to. And I think it probably will. Huh. Yeah. It's not the greatest fit. That's for sure. I've got these lights somewhat loose. But I also think I might be able to reach in there and make some adjustments. Jeez. It's not the greatest fitting thing. I don't know if they're supposed to fit, like, I don't think they're supposed to fit like in this, but I think there's a little channel that kind of keeps the corners in from the looks of it. But I'm gonna go ahead and put some of my clips in the bumper. Now, sometimes they come with new clips, sometimes they don't. Mine happen to come with new ones, which is awesome. And a little bit of a trick, guys, is you could put them together. Basically, you could put the centers in and then just kind of snap it up all the way around. To me, that's the easiest way. That way you're not trying to reach in these tight areas, especially like this one. I noticed when I took it apart, this one was still in the bumper because somebody didn't take it out, or somebody's had this off before or something. So I'm going to go ahead and put all my clips in, and then I think I'm just gonna try to snap it up into place, and we'll just have to adjust the headlights or the fog lights accordingly, because it's a really big light and a really small opening. So I don't think they're supposed to set in it. And like I said, look, mine came with brand new ones. It even came with the new clips for the sides. One for the middle. It's kind of cool. I was expecting it not to. But I'll put these little clips on last. What I'm planning on doing is going ahead and pushing these guys through. And then, like I said, I've seen in the past where people have just put these in, left the middles in, and then you can just kind of pop it in place. We're gonna give that a shot. I don't know whether it works or not, but man, it'd be a lot nicer if it did. Okay, so the clip does go on the black piece. I don't know what I was thinking. We're gonna attempt to push this thing up into place. There may be some, I may have to stop it for bad language. I don't think that's gonna work that way. I still think we're gonna have to push the clips through all at once, but we'll see. Well, maybe not. I just got to get behind it and push on them. I'm not loving that. Seems to be like sticking out. Maybe the other one was like that. Maybe so. This doesn't look right. Whew, that's a tight fit. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I've still got to get the corners in, but I think that'll work. Well, I got it on there. I'll tell you guys, the ones above the fog lights are a pain, and I don't see a good way to take the fog lights out with that in place. I mean, you could probably reach around. That's how I'm gonna have to tighten them, is with a couple wrenches, but we need to put these guys in the corner to draw that up. So it did come with new ones of these as well. And then we'll be finished getting that on. I'm gonna go back there, kind of push the fog lights up as close to that valance as I can and snug it down. I now have all the sides tightened up. Looks pretty good. I kind of stood beside it, or like laid beside it here on my creeper, and made sure it was even as I was snugging it down. Got that one in the middle, that clip. Remember, there's one in the middle, 10 millimeter, and then the same thing on this side. What I will tell you guys is, I don't think there's any way to get those fog lights in afterwards. So you're gonna have to put them in first. Tightening those up, I was able to sneak a wrench in there and get on one side and get it snug, and the other side I could get my finger in there, so I could only get it tight enough that my finger would hold, but it doesn't seem to be pushing back. I moved them all the way forward. It is not a perfectly flush setup. While it is very close, it is not it's not gonna set perfectly flush. Just depending on the plastics and the type of lights you used. I tried to use, that is a GM piece, but at this point, I'm finished with all that. I'm gonna clean this thing up and I'm gonna get it back in place. All it is clips, and then obviously the 10 millimeters on the edges, but I do want to go ahead and put it back in place. I think it looks a little nicer, a little more finished with that on there. So let me get it cleaned up real quick. We'll get it on there, and then we're going to test these things. So I've got the lip on, and I just kind of cleaned it off a little bit. I should have painted my tow hooks, and honestly, if it wasn't for me driving this thing in winter, I'd take the things off, but the occasion I may slide in the ditch, that'd be a good spot to hook on. But we're gonna give them a shot here and see if they work. I'm hoping they do. I don't know why they wouldn't. I see one's on for sure. They are both working. Okay, so that finishes up that, right? So the install on that, and they look really good, and we'll probably aim them later. There is an aiming device on them so you can get them, you know, kind of where you need them. But there is one other thing I want to do, and that's that 6 on mod. So now when you flip the brights on, your fog lights go off. And so while I'll never really run it this way, if I'm out on a road back in where I live, there might be a time where I want a ton of lighting. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in. I'm gonna show you guys that thing. It's pretty cool. So, and it doesn't take much to install it. We can install it in less than a couple minutes. So let's get this thing turned off. I'll bring you up here by the, we'll actually be working under this little fuse block that we pulled out earlier. But let's go grab that part and put it in. So to put this thing in, this is all there is to it. And guys, look, it only works on 2003 to 2007 Classic or 2006. But essentially what we're doing is it goes right here in the middle of all this. So we're gonna have to pull out a couple relays. You can see it kind of sandwiches between them. So what I'm gonna do is hopefully I can pull this all out by hand. There's one, and I'm gonna kind of face them the same way. You think that one would come out easier since I just put it in. There's 2. So you can see we need 2 more pulled out here. There's 3. And there's 4. And I'm just setting them, I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess, but just trying to set them. Looks like there's some wire in there. So once we get that in there, you can see it's in, we can go ahead and start putting these back into place. And what this does is it jumps those other fuses, or those connections, to where it stays on at all times. And a couple people asked me back when I did this on my Yukon, or the Tahoe, I mean, you know, did you have any issues with it blowing fuses or having any problems? I did not. So if I can get that thing in there, that does not want to go in there. Holy cow, that's a tight fit. I don't want to bend it. There we go. So there's that one. And then the last one here. It seems like the one that I just put in for the fog light was the one that gave me the fit there. So now let's give it another shot. What should happen is we should get headlights, right? We'll put our dims on. So there we've got our dim lights and our fogs. Now what should happen is we should get everything now. And we did. So how you see how the fog lights stayed on, the dim stayed on, and the bright stayed on. That is going to make things some sort of crazy bright. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna turn my light off here in the shop because it's dark outside, and we will leave the lights on here. So this is just fog lights and the dims. And then what we'll do is we'll turn the fog lights off, see what kind of difference they make. I really want to go out on the road with it, but so no fog lights, just dims. Fog lights, I think those are brighter than the headlights. And then all lights. That's gonna make a pretty big difference. So what I'm thinking, guys, is we're gonna take it, once the weather warms up a little bit, I'm gonna take it outside, and I'll show you guys all in this video, but we'll take a look at it maybe behind the wheel at night. That way you can see the difference with fog lights on, fog lights off, and then brights, dims, etc. So let's, I'll just cut to that part of the video right now. Let's give these things a test and see how much we improve things. We got a car coming, but here we've got just our dims, and there's our fogs. So look at the ditches, how much that lights up the ditch. And then this is all of them. So brights, dims, and fogs. We can run them all at once now. So quite a difference. As you can see, pretty big difference at night. Definitely with that 6-on mod, as they call it. The lighting is just incredible on this thing. But I think we're finished. You know, it's not too bad of a job. And to be honest with you guys, the hardest part, I think, was probably putting the valance on, just snapping that thing in place and then trying to reach the fog lights to tighten them. Other than that, the wiring was pretty simple, I would say. And you don't have to solder the connections. That's just something that I do on all my stuff. You could use like a butt connector, just not my preferred method, especially since it's, you know, low on the truck and could potentially get water in it. But all in all, not too bad. Look, I think that it's definitely worth it. I mainly wanted it for the looks, to be honest with you. The lighting is awesome and it's definitely better, but my valance was worn out. It was broken in several spots, and so I wanted to replace it, and I thought, why not add the fog lights while we do it? And like I said, I did it more for the looks. I think it looks better. Trucks with fog lights, in my opinion, look a little more high-end than like your base models that don't have it. But let me know what you guys think. Like I said, I will list everything I use in the description down below, and not too bad as far as expense, especially if you make your own harness and don't buy like a pre-made one. I think that's the way to go. I think it's cheaper to do that. But like I said, not too expensive. Somebody can do this relatively easy. Now, the unfortunate thing is it is only one of those things that works on like your 03 to 07 Classic. As far as the switch, there's no programming required. Unlike this guy where I added a separate switch. It's not a factory switch, which I made a video on that as well back when I did the fog lights in it. But if you guys did enjoy this video, please, like always, go down there and smash that thumbs up button. If you guys are not subscribed, please go down there, hit that subscribe button. Of course, ring the bell icon. That notifies you every single time we drop a new video. And stay tuned to see what we work on next.